Asajj Ventress was a young, near-human adult female born 40 or so years before the Battle of Yavin. As a toddler, Ventress would be sold to a rat-attack slaver. In her adolescence, a Jedi Master named Kai Narek will become stranded on her planet. After witnessing Ventress's Force abilities, Narek would take her as her own unofficial Jedi Padawan. Together, Asajj and Kai would fight the warlords of the war-torn planet, becoming heroes. However, the warlords would become tired of their heroics, banding together to take out the pair. They would succeed, killing Narek. After her master's death, Asajj would follow the path of the dark side. Determined by her need for revenge, she killed all the remaining warlords on the planet, tattooing a mark for each kill on her head. Years later, as a young woman, she would meet the Sith Lord, Count Dooku, joining the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars. She had built up a hate for the Jedi, whom she believed abandoned Kai Narek on her homeworld. During the Clone Wars, she would become one of the most prominent Jedi killers, on par with General Grievous. Her skill was so immense, she would even contend with top-tier Jedi counselors. However, her reign would be cut short. Count Dooku's master, Darth Sidious, thought Ventress was becoming too powerful, afraid that she was being trained as a Sith to overthrow him, so he ordered her execution. Count Dooku would follow orders, but would ultimately fail. Asajj would then begin working for herself, with no affiliations with the Sith nor the Jedi. Jack, born Jennifer, also known as Subject Zero, was a young human female born in 2161. It is unclear where she was born, but she was on Eden Prime, a human colony, when the Cerberus organization abducted her. Jack was perhaps the most powerful human biotic in the galaxy due to her exposure to the element Zero in the womb. She would become the focus of Cerberus experiments on Prega Teltin's facility. Though she was tortured physically and mentally, most of Cerberus's grueling experiments would prove effective, and she became all the more deadly. In her adolescence, the other children rioted against her oppressors, and she was freed, killing everyone in her path, staff and children alike. She would go on to become a space pirate, join a cult, sold as a slave, and ran with many, many gangs. However, she never stayed in one place for too long, always being cut off or leaving on her own. Eventually, her free reign would come to an end when the Blue Suns faction imprisoned her on Purgatory. She would not be freed until Commander Shepard, under order of the Elusive Man, offered her a spot on his team for a suicide mission. Reluctantly, she obliged, and she would become one of the most naturally powerful members of his team. As with all my Versus videos, I'll be comparing these opponents in their primes. For Asajj Ventress, this would be her time near the end of the Clone Wars in the Star Wars mythos. For Jack, this will be her time during Mass Effect 3, when she remained powerful but kept a cooler head. Asajj Ventress stood at 5 feet 9 inches tall, somewhat tall for a near-human female. As a near-human, or human, I'm not really sure, she will be attributed with high adaptability and resiliency. She was in the physical prime for her species, which was enhanced all the more by her use of the Force. But it would be her intense physical training that would put her over the edge. Not only was she a tough cookie, but she had immense levels of speed as well, withstanding and outmaneuvering Anakin Skywalker. Ventress has also displayed a skill with hand-to-hand combat, able to defeat multiple Night Brothers without the use of her lightsabers. While she did hold a lot of strength, it would be her speed that would place her above her opponents. It would take the likes of Anakin Skywalker to take her down initially, but eventually, she would learn her lesson and exact her revenge. Jack stood around 1.5 meters tall, standard for a human female. As a human, her physiology was on par with the Tyrian race, who were strong, fast, and agile. However, humans were less agile than Asari, though they had more strength in them. And humans are stronger than Solarians, but much slower. Most of all, humans were able to achieve a talent for biotics, usually through the exposure of element 0 in the womb. Much like Jack, humans were often the centerpiece to many biological experiments because of their diverse and robust physiology. Jack would showcase high levels of physical endurance and resiliency. After her time in the Cerberus Biotic facility, her body would be hardened during her tenure as a slave. She also ran with many gangs and pirates during her escapades across the galaxy, which would strengthen her resolve as well. However, she was not completely dominant in her strength. During her time in the prison facility Purgatory, she was overpowered by several inmates who took advantage of her. Though later, she would exact her revenge, killing every single one of her violators. Jack was an astounding character of physical prowess. Not many could overpower her one-to-one. Only a group or a whole prison facility could keep her tame.
This round is probably the closest of all of them. Asajj Ventress certainly has the speed advantage, using the Force to augment her agility, but Jack has displayed great strength and resiliency. Asajj would certainly be able to land several punches on Jack, but the biotic human would throw up a barrier to lessen the impact of the strikes. Even so, Asajj Ventress' speed far exceeded anything Jack has shown. Therefore, I give the edge to Asajj Ventress for her physical attributes. Though she had limited training in Sith techniques, Asajj Ventress was a powerful and versatile Force user. Her many feats showcase her power and finesse with the Force, from her powerful use of telekinesis to her more subtle approaches with Force Cloak. Perhaps the most frequently used of her abilities was her physical augmentation. Though she was already in the best shape she could be, she augmented her agility with the Force, being seen only as a blur to her opponents. Though her showings of beast manipulation and body control are less frequent, they were still massively powerful. She was able to tame the mind of a Rancor, riding it like a common horse. But what was most impressive is that she was able to control an entire squad of reanimated Gungans in the swamps of Dun. One of her more subtle talents lied with her Force Cloak. Even untrained, she was able to briefly sneak up on Count Dooku, killing the alien sitting next to him without a sound. Her official training of Quaytech under Count Dooku would only sharpen her skills with her cloaking abilities. Most of all, Asajj Ventress was a master of telekinesis. She could break through a Force user's wall, notably through 3 Jedi Knights, simultaneously. Against non-Force users, she could break bone and rupture organs easily. But her skill with telekinesis did not stop at her strength. When she could not outright power her way through a Force barrier, she employed her powers with more finesse. When she failed to break through Anakin Skywalker's Force wall, she began using her power as a distraction, battering him with rocks and snapping branches under his feet. On the subject of Anakin Skywalker, Asajj Ventress was a great comparison against his own use of the Force. Anakin employed his abilities with a singular mind, thrusting through his opponents with pure talent in spite of finesse. Ventress, by contrast, had the foresight to alter her abilities when this was not the case, making her a more effective Force user, in my own opinion. However, Asajj Ventress' own Force wall was not perfect, having her Force wall broken or at least somewhat penetrated and getting pummeled by Force lightning on several occasions. Likewise, she was weak against mind manipulation, as displayed against Master Fei. This makes sense, as she was generally weak in her mental resilience, often giving into blind rage. In spite of all that, she was still a great Force user, using it with awesome power or masterful skill. Jack had no specific classification as a soldier or tech, as she was more a ragtag pirate. However, this could mean she had a lot of versatility within her combat experiences, though it could also mean she lacked experience in training as a combatant. However, she is probably most similar to the Vanguard class, identified by their high-risk, high-reward combat style. They were great close range, but it would also open them up to attack as well. In battle, Jack often took the forefront of the group, using her biotic barrier to protect herself and heavy weapons to blow her enemies back. Where she lacked was her defense against physical attacks from opposing foes. For example, in the comic Mass Effect Foundation, Jack is knocked unconscious by a Krogan. Granted, this was a Krogan. Jack's preferred weapon by far was her shotgun, which lacked in range but carried a big punch up close. Her use of the shotgun would enable her to get close to her foes where she felt most comfortable. However, she did carry a pistol as a sidearm as well, favoring the heavy pistol in particular. Heavy pistols were effective at medium to long range, but Jack would not often use them as it was not her MO to be at the back of the party. It's somewhat obvious that being a Sith acolyte is more favorable to being a human biotic. While Mass Effect Biotics did have similar abilities in telekinesis, it usually paled in comparison to a Force user. Furthermore, Jack employed her biotic abilities with the same mindset as Anakin Skywalker, throwing a barrage of attacks at her opponents with little finesse. While Jack's biotic potential and Asajj Ventress's force potential were on par, Ventress employed her abilities with more tactical ingenuity, but Jack's use of warp ammo may be able to cut through Ventress's relatively weak force barrier. All that being said, the edge still goes to Asajj Ventress in regards to her special abilities.